Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Today we're talking about marriage. Join us as we discuss the effects and changes on our marriages as our kids have left the nest. What adjustments have we had to make? What have we learned? What new freedoms have we experienced? Let's get started. Listeners, today we're talking about marriage. It's just Mindy and I today. Julie couldn't be here, but we're going to be talking about the effects and changes on our marriage as our kids have left the nest. What adjustments have we had to make? What have we learned? And what new freedoms have we experienced? And Mindy came to me with this idea of talking about all the different stages in a marriage. And so, Mindy, will you explain to everyone what your idea was? Because I think it's such a great one to talk about.
Yes. Well, I'll tell you, the idea first came to me when I was doing a mindless scroll through Facebook. And I happened to see this thing about, if you've been married for a long time, that basically you've been married like 5 or 6 times, but to the same person. And that really struck a chord with me. And so, really, today's topic comes out of that. It just comes out of this marriage relationship that literally takes constant attention, maintenance, and flexibility if it's going to be good. It really is one of the biggest blessings of my life, and I know of yours as well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was even interesting that as I kind of researched for the topic and kind of how to navigate it, even looking up, like, well, what does it mean to have a long marriage? A marriage of many years. And the internet couldn't even agree on what that was. And so that's somewhere between 10 and 20 years. So, so Bryce and I have been married almost 29 years. And how about you guys?
We will be married 33 years this month.
Oh my goodness, that's right. I always forget you
Yeah.
guys are married around Christmas, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
So, okay, we have long marriages.
Right.
And literally what a blessing. Um, but also, I mean, there's just a lot of joy. There's a lot of challenges that come with having so many seasons that you've gone through together.
Mm-hmm.
And so the internet also, it was interesting to see, it really pinpointed some of the harder seasons, I guess, that marriages tend to navigate. So I was just going to kind of briefly read through what those harder seasons of marriage are kind of known. Some of the hard periods of marriage are the first 1 to 3 years. That's just learning to adjust your finances, family obligations, career pressures, just getting through the honeymoon phase.
Mm-hmm.
Years 3 through 8, especially with young kids, just the intense demands of raising small children, balancing work, household duties. It can just breed resentment and fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's the 7-year itch, often linked to midlife, a desire for change, feeling life is passing you by, and it might lead to just being dissatisfied. And then there's the middle years, dealing with aging parents, children leaving the home, particularly empty nest. And it says personal midlife crisis. So, do any of those resonate with you?
Yeah, I think in some of the notes you sent me, you said almost like your marriage changes every 5 years if you've been married
Yeah.
long enough. And so it's kind of like, I think it said you kind of agree to close a chapter on a 5-year period and move into a new one. And that
Yeah.
really resonated with me because I went through and thought about my marriage in terms of 5-year increments.
Okay.
And I wanted to just give a little bit of a summary, but I felt like the first 5 years, I was a college student, I was a graduate student, I was a new professional, I was a new mother. We moved 4 times, we lived in 2 states, we owned 2 homes, we had 2 kids. That's a lot for the first 5 years. And then
Right.
in the next 5 years, we moved to a 3rd state. We bought 2 more homes. We had a 3rd kid and then a set of twins 20 months later.
Ooh.
Also, we moved from the north to the south, which was a complete cultural and lifestyle change for us. Then in the next 5-year period, Steve started law school at night, so he'd work all day. He'd go to law school for 4 years. That was long. And then I was thinking about our next 5 years. He took a job where he requires a lot of travel. And I kind of just gave up on any kind of attempt at a professional life and just became like full-time hands-on the parent at home because you really need that.
Mhm.
And we had, kids in elementary, kids in middle, kids in high school. My older two entered the teenage years. At the end of that 5-year period, my oldest left for college. Like, that rocked my world, and that was something that I had to work through. Then in the next 5-year period, I had another one leave for college. My younger ones entered the high school years. COVID hit and lasted forever. My my younger three in that 5 or 6 year period did finish high school, leave for college. Like, when I look at my
Mhm.
marriage in terms of 5 years, I was like, wow, no wonder we had to close, or no wonder you should like close a chapter on 5 years and enter a new one if you're experiencing so many life changes in each chapter. Because if I just glanced back at 33 years, I thought, well, they're kind of all the same. But no, each 5-year period was very
Mhm.
different and very busy for very different reasons.
I love that you did it like that. I mean, for you to even realize what you and Steve have walked through
Yeah.
together, all the people that you've been. I mean, I was thinking of just the different stages that Bryce and I have gone through together. Um, Getting married at 18 and 20, we were both so young and naive and ignorant of all the things, and that was really good for us. We had
Mhm.
no idea. We had no idea the life that we would build together, the challenges that we would face. And literally, I would almost describe, getting through the first 3 years as just, ignorant bliss. Like, we were college students, we were trying to start careers, praying about a family. And so I was thinking then throughout our 29 years together, all the different people that we've been.
Mhm.
And this was kind of funny to think about because the first thing I think is we've been skinny and we've been fat together.
Oh.
We've literally looked so different through the years, and somehow here in, this 29th year, we're somehow starting to feel more like we were when we were newlyweds. I don't
Mm.
know how that
Mhm.
happened. I think that there's something really hard, but also really beautiful about entering empty nest, that you
Mhm.
kind of reclaim, your old self in a sense, but I almost feel like we're reclaiming our old starter selves, like the
Mhm.
beginning of our marriage, even though it's like the second half. So I do feel like we're about to begin again. But yeah, so we've been skinny, we've been fat. We were really young. Now we're getting old from what our kids tell us. Um, we've been broke. We've been rich. We've, in
Uh-huh.
fact, now it's kind of funny to think about. We're like, well, if we lost everything, we've been those people before. We know how to do that. It's not
Mhm.
quite so scary. And so there's just like a contentment in that. Like, we could really live anywhere. We've been in the North, we've been in the South, we've had to navigate many different selling of homes, buying of homes, which is no small feat.
No.
We've added children, we've had miscarriages, we've had career highs, we've had career lows. Um, we just all of those things, I felt like the career and the family building were almost in constant conflict with one another.
Mm.
And so
Mhm.
through those busy years, we had different jobs that we were both accomplishing. And so somehow getting through those things, it's such a blessing to be at this stage, I guess, to be able to look back. And I do love that you actually broke it down into 5-year increments.
Mm. Mhm.
So, Marie, what would you say are some of the biggest obstacles really that you and Steve faced? I know you mentioned a lot of different changes, but what were some of the things that really probably tested you guys the most?
I'd probably have to look at each one of those 5-year periods again. Like, I definitely think in each 5-year period, there were different things. I was talking with my son and daughter-in-law who just had a new baby last month. And I can't remember how this came up. I think my son might have been talking about one of his friends that just got married and like maybe advice that they were giving him, like people at the bachelor party. And he
Mhm.
said, so many people gave him the advice or like the warning that marriage is so hard. And he and my daughter-in-law have been married for 6 years. They were kind of talking. They're like, well, we don't really think, it's been that hard. But secretly in my mind, I was thinking, you just had your first hard enter the world.
Ooh, it's
He was
true. I
just
agree.
born. He
Mhm.
hasn't had time to make it hard yet. And not that children aren't a blessing. They totally are. But I feel like the first real stressor was just having a child. And we were young. So maybe this is not the same for people that are a little bit older. But
Okay.
I could not fathom at that time how radically different your life would look before and after kids. Every aspect of it. And so you really have a lot of work to do navigating that in the first year or two, I think. I think that's one of the
Mhm.
first stressors that people go through in marriage. It's really a dying of yourself because someone else's needs are now more important than your own. And even in this really new baby type, their needs are honestly more important than the couple's needs for a period of time. Like,
Right.
it's just such a radical departure from the way you've been living when you have your first child.
I totally agree with you on this. Becoming parents was one of the hardest things that we did. I think it probably changed us the most. And then each child thereafter changed
Mhm.
you even more. Whether it was as stark a difference or not, it still changed the dynamic. And more children that you add, the more far apart you really can grow, depending on
Mhm.
how you're combating that together. But yes, 100% adding children.
Mhm. Mhm. I would say moving. Moving has been testing times. Maybe not
Yeah.
as much moving if you're just moving within the same city, but we've moved between states and it's a stressful, hard time on your marriage. It's, hard to leave a place. It's hard to get settled in a new place. It's hard to get your kids resettled. It's hard to, you could be moving for not so great of reasons. Maybe only one of you really wanted to move and the other one
Mhm.
wasn't gung ho about it. Maybe someone's taking a new job and that requires adjustment. Like, the feelings I have around moving during those years a bit of, are a bit stressful.
Yes. I mean, there is the added bonus that if you do move to a new place and the only people you know are each other, that
Mhm.
really can be a sweet time. But oh my goodness, I mentioned selling and buying a home. That will stress a marriage.
Mhm. Mhm.
We actually, because we've done it so many times, Bryce created a formula for to help us make those decisions on negotiating selling and negotiating buying, to prioritize the things that we each wanted, and to navigate those selling and buying processes. And so that came out of a lot of conflict that we got to him making this formula, to us being trustworthy of one another and what the other prioritized because it was always different.
Mhm. I think what you mentioned about career growth can also be stressful. Like I said, I briefly mentioned that after 13 years of marriage, Steve decided to go to law school at night for 4 years. So he'd work all day, then he would go to school. I think the first 2 years he went to school 3 nights a week, and the next 2 years he went to school 4 nights a week.
Oh
And
my.
that's a lot. My youngest 2 were 2 years old when he started. So, that was a stressful period of time. I think anytime someone is looking to change careers or ramp up a career or switches careers, it causes a stress on the family because it's going to take time, it's going to take work, it's going to take something away from the family. I mean, hopefully you're gaining something, but also there are sacrifices to be made. And then again, when he took a job traveling, you don't know what you don't know when something starts,
Right.
but especially in the past few years, and I talked to other wives whose husbands have had careers traveling, that is its own breed or its own stress out of marriage or its own way of parenting. Like, there are specific challenges and specific changes in a family when the husband and father travels. I'm not saying that those are bad or good. I'm just saying that they happen. the wife takes on a different role than she would have maybe taken on had the husband come home every night. And the husband takes on a different role than he would have normally had if he was home every night. And the kids have different expectations and roles, and family life works differently. And the marriage dynamics are different than if someone came home every night. And I think recognizing and acknowledging and preparing and working on those things, are needed. They just, I realize it more and more the more I talk to people who have had husbands that long-term travel and will share something. It's like, oh, that was not just me. Like that was a commonality in your family too. And that's comforting to me.
Yes. I love that you're sharing that because there's so many different types of couples and family dynamics that go into your particular family. And I know I watched my parents navigate the military.
Mm,
And you look at
mhm,
a military family, and I remember my dad, there was a season of his career in the Army where he was gone 2 weeks of every month.
mm,
That was just to go to the field for training. And then there were times that he had extended stays, outside of our home. And then there was the time he came home one day and said, "I'm leaving for Afghanistan today, and I don't know when I'll be home." And my mom had 2 teenagers at home.
mhm,
She didn't
mhm,
live near her family. When they were newlyweds, my parents, they moved to Germany first. That was her first place to move with as a young she was only 16 when they got married
oh, goodness.
and 17 when she flew by herself to Germany, and they lived on the economy and they had no phone.
Mm.
Living on the economy means they weren't able to live on the army base around other army families. So they were
Oh.
actually in Germany, no phone near German
Mhm,
neighbors,
mhm,
no family. Her husband would literally just maybe not show up at home that night for dinner, and
mhm,
she wouldn't know that he had to go to the field. He just
mm,
wouldn't come home.
mhm,
But they navigated these things, these military families, and clearly communication is so much better
mhm,
these days, but they had to go through that, and they just continued to hold tight to one another. And I just think about all the times that, Bryce had jobs where he was gone most of the time,
mhm,
which was often.
mhm,
And it always seemed to hit, it's like, okay, he wasn't traveling, but he wasn't home. Like,
mhm,
he's just down the road, but none of us ever saw him.
mhm,
And, it always your kids are being raised through
mhm,
these times, they're going through potty training, preschool,
mhm,
maybe you're homeschooling,
mhm,
um, middle school tears and fights and years and hormones,
mhm,
teenagers, and maybe you have a rebellious child, and maybe, you're just really needing each other, and everything's in conflict. Everything's trying to separate you as a couple.
mhm,
And so to try to almost even take the kids out, take the work out, take your families out, take
mhm,
your house out. I mean, all these things become stressors. These blessings become stressors.
mhm,
And any one of those things can separate a couple.
mhm. Yeah, that's so true. I mean, you mentioned the teenagers, and I think teenagers are wonderful, and they're also horrible. They're hard on a marriage. There's a lot of drama around teenagers because they're in a constant flux and drama just within their own bodies. And that naturally spills over into the family. And then if you have multiple people that are teenagers at the same time, now the drama is multiplied and they're up late at night with their drama.
Right.
So so, like, maybe those preschoolers were hard, but they went to bed at 7. There's some time in the evening to
Right.
reconnect as a couple. When you have teenagers, your reconnect time as a couple is very limited
Yeah.
because they're up late and their drama is continuous. Like, you might think it's not going to be drama, and then all of a sudden a grenade goes off because something happened that you couldn't have prepared for. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I mean, I think teenagers in and of themselves are a stressor.
They are, and without trying to, they really do play you against one another.
Yeah.
Um, you know, they really do. They just want what they want. And so they don't always realize what they're doing. But literally, I could almost say all of these seasons that Bryce and I have gone through, every decision that we had to make, any possible change that presented itself to us, I can guarantee you that Bryce and I approach every single problem differently.
Mhm.
If you ask us how to do something, we answer differently. And so this is comical to us because we know it now, like we laugh about it now, but it was hard to realize that pretty much we approach every problem from a different place. And it has taken, a lot of, I'll say, just conflict and almost like Timothy Keller calls marriage holy sandpaper because it is that constant like friction of rubbing against one another and it really smooths you through that process but yeah, we've had to learn to how to respect one another and that we are so different and to utilize that for our good and not actually let it separate us.
Mhm. So there's a lot of obstacles, and we didn't even talk like
Yeah.
about health issues. Like there's people that
Right.
have big health issues that they navigate, or if you had a special needs child, or I don't know. There's can be some really big factors that you and I really even haven't had to deal with.
Right. That's right.
So there's definitely a lot of obstacles. I think that that's why people say that marriage is hard because if you just continued with just the two of you, you probably aren't going to have as many reasons for it being hard. But as soon as you start adding more people, more influences, more factors to consider, more life experience, all of a sudden there's ups and downs. And
Mhm.
not that there's not really great aspects, but there's work in there too.
Mhm. I totally agree. And so one of the things I'd love to share here is I'd love to ask you just what were some things or some people that helped you and Steve navigate those hard seasons together?
Well, I'm a big reader. So I
Yeah.
feel like I feel like I've always read a lot. So I know that we've read a few marriage books together over the years. I think that can really help you get a new perspective on each other and also make you realize that you're not alone in your struggles. Like these are common struggles to people and they can be solved or at least improve a lot. So I
Mhm.
think reading can be helpful. And I would say that reading self help and then even fictional books help me a lot. Like I always feel like if an author wrote about it, even in a fictional setting, then they probably have experienced it or know someone that's experienced it. And that makes me feel less alone. So if I read about someone having trouble in their marriage, even if it's fictional, and they say something that resonates with me, I'm like, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That can be really helpful. I think the overarching theme for me is what helps me is if I know I'm not alone. So also
Yeah.
talking to other people or talking to people that are just ahead of me. Or, like I said, talking to other wives whose husbands travel and saying, oh, this isn't like something wrong with us. This is just something that
Right.
happens that we can fix, but it's common
Mhm.
to a lot of different people.
Mhm.
So I feel like knowing that you're not alone is really helpful. We have been in some marriage Bible studies over the years, which also get you talking because they ask you questions and you have to do the homework before you come back. So you have some conversations that you might not have had on your own. Prayer. Sometimes you just have to pray, like, give me the desire to even work on this. Like
Amen.
sometimes you just don't even feel like working on something at
Nope.
different points in your marriage. You're like, I don't know.
Yeah.
You're not
Yeah.
calling it quits, but you just sometimes you can become kind of apathetic or
Mhm.
tired or there's so many stresses you don't even know where to begin. Like sometimes just
Right.
praying like I don't really have any desire right here, but maybe you could give me some, God. I
Amen.
know that love is a choice. So like
Right.
help me make the loving choice. I don't know, those are some things that came to mind. How about you?
I do love that. My list is very similar to yours when I thought about just kind of what helped us through the years. I jokingly said at the beginning of our marriage, it was pure stubbornness and ignorance. Like
Mm.
we
Mhm.
and I'm thankful for that, but we both were stubborn for one another, and, we were very naive. We were very ignorant, but we just kept choosing one another. And then in the busy season, it's funny you mentioned books because I can attribute, my change of perspective and even prayers for my marriage and focus on my marriage was when we lived in Brentwood and I frequented the Brentwood Library. I went through this whole kick of reading all the Karen Kingsbury books.
Mhm.
And I happened upon a set of books called A Time to Dance and A Time to Embrace. And it's a two-part series. I may have gotten them mixed up in order. But
Okay.
anyways, it's a two-part book series. And it was during the busy season of raising children and Bryce career building when we lived there. And I read these two books and it completely changed my mind and opened my eyes to what could happen if I continued to let the busyness of life be the priority as
Mhm.
opposed to making Bryce a priority. Because, the book starts out with a couple that is in empty nest, and they're trying to find a time to tell their kids that they're divorcing.
Mm.
And then it takes a look back in time at all the little things that they let come between them, like little things, little
Mhm.
decisions. And it really awakened me during the busy season that I didn't want that to happen to us, and
Mhm.
I could see it happening.
Mhm.
Um, we had a son that, had ADHD in elementary school, and I say that because we ended up going to see a Christian counselor with him together. It was really eye-opening because his ADHD was causing a lot of conflict in our home and in our marriage.
Mhm.
And so being able to take this child and together go see a counselor that loved the Lord and that helped us understand our child, got us on the same page even as to how to combat ADHD. And
Mhm.
ADHD is like, oh, it's so simple. So many kids have it. But this was a big conflict in our home, and we were not coming at it the same direction. That really helped the three of us. And then honestly, I'd say the legacy of long marriage from my parents and my grandparents and watching them and knowing that they were still choosing one another. And the older I got, realizing how hard that was for each of them. It wasn't something that just came naturally.
Mhm.
Sometimes it was our kids needing us to be together.
Mm.
We
Mhm.
didn't always feel like it. You get tired, you get weary. And literally, it was like, our kids need us to be in unity. It will
Mhm.
be better for them. And sometimes that was the reason that we were like, we gotta work this out. We gotta figure this out.
Mhm.
Um, but I attribute the secret sauce, the magic of holding us together through all of these seasons to God alone. Anytime we've prayed together, anytime I've prayed for Bryce, I would say anytime I even maybe prayed against Bryce, when I was like, Lord, change that man. He is
Mm.
driving me crazy.
Mhm.
Change this about him. Somehow God brought me to a place of humbling, brought us to a place of unity, somehow worked it out, somehow knit us together. And when I look back through all of the seasons and all the people that we've been and all the highs and lows that we've walked through together, God alone has held us together. And it is not anything that we have done, but I would say, I would echo what you said. I would pray that God would make me willing, that God would
Mhm.
reignite, what are the things that I love about him? Remind me of the things that pulled us together. Show me a way that we're going to make it through this next thing because I don't see how we're going to get through this on the same page.
Mhm.
And God always made a way and provided a way. And I'd say the night only lasted so long, and there was always joy in the morning. And so we've had rough seasons, as I think any couple who's been married a while can say. And for us, God alone has held us together.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, at this point, I found some funny quotes and I thought, let's add just a little humor and maybe let's start to move to just some of the joys and the highlights that we see now coming out of our long marriages. So, a couple of the quotes that I saw. where I'd still marry you again, just maybe after a long nap. It's like let's see. Winston Churchill said, "My most brilliant achievement was my ability to be able to persuade my wife to marry me." And then the last one I thought was hilarious was marriage, the only sport where you're on the same team but constantly argue about the rules.
That's very true.
So, what are some things that you would say are just some of the highlights now that you've seen, just as you have stuck with Steve through all these years? What are some of the joys that you guys are experiencing right now in this season?
Well, I think it takes a while to get to the empty nest. So your first one leaves and people start, saying that you're entering the empty nest. But actually, my first one left over 10 years ago. But because I had 5 kids, it's just a slow progression. So I really only feel like we've gotten to the empty nest since 2022, since my last 2 graduated. And all in that time of getting to the empty nest, when you're still raising teenagers, I mean, you might be experiencing less teenagers, but you're still experiencing all the stresses just because you have a teenager. So it's amazing how when everyone leaves, how little there is to argue about. It's so funny. Like, you hate to say that. It's not like you were, or maybe I shouldn't say argue about, but how much fewer things there are to feel stressed about. And not that the teenagers can't be enjoyable. They can be, but I noticed this even when my older kids come back from college, all of a sudden we're back in parent mode. And parent mode of teenagers is not conducive to carefree couple mode. It's just not the same mode. And I have a real hard time melding those together. So one of the things I have been happy about as we've entered the empty nest is that we can learn to enjoy each other as people again. And I think you do have to discover some things that you like to do again. Like, I remember after the twins graduated, I mean, I spent 6 to 9 months just feeling like, oh, what next? Like, what are we going to talk about? Are we still happy together? Like, I don't know, not big cracks, but just, what is family life like now? What does it look like when he comes home for dinner and there's no one else at the table? I mean, that's fun on date night when you're raising kids, but I don't know if it looks as fun to women as they look at the empty nest.
Right.
It can look a little overwhelming, like what's there going to be to talk about? And when he's home, he works from home. So yeah, maybe if he just got home from a trip, there's a lot to talk about. But if you've been working from home all day, well, what is there really to talk about? Because I've already seen you and we've already had conversations. So it's almost like you have to start to look at your life in a new way. And you have to start to think about, well, what are some new things that we could do or pursue or get excited about, or I don't know, just that we could be on the same page and on the same team together like we were parenting, but now just something more fun.
Right. Yeah, it's an interesting dynamic to get through the busy season, the busyness of raising children, the busyness of career building, and then you come to this point, and Bryce and I are not quite there yet. We've got one kid,
Hanging
still
on.
he's barely here, but he's still here. We can't just up and take a trip.
Right.
And so, but yes, as it gets quieter in the house again, and you're not necessarily career building and you're not, answering a million questions about scheduling conflicts and sports and going here and going there and driving the people, it can get quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And, and unless you're able to kind of rediscover, relearn, both be willing, and I say that because sometimes not both are willing. But
Mm-hmm.
I think you both have to continue to choose. I like that you said love is a choice. You have to continue to choose to be willing
Mm-hmm.
to learn, to grow, that your relationship is going to change again. You're going to be different people again. And it can be a lot of fun once you get through that uncomfortable, like, oh my goodness, what are we going to talk about for the next 25 years?
Mm-hmm.
And it can feel daunting, whereas before you were fighting for that time. But
Right.
now that you have it, you're like, "I don't know what to do with it." And he sneezes really loud.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. So, one of the things that has helped us is just we moved. We moved and we lived somewhere different than we lived raising our kids. I remember as my kids left, I looked around the house and I thought, "Oh, I just don't know if I see myself here for the next half of my life." Like,
Mhm.
same yard, same rooms that I raised babies, same places that we went in and out all day long and school and all the sports and all the things. And I don't know if I see myself just waking up here alone and Steve's still traveling and then just walking in the same neighborhood. I don't know. To me, that felt overwhelming. Other people
Okay.
might find comfort in it, but I just felt like, ugh, I don't know if I want to do that. And we kind of just through a series of events ended up moving to a neighborhood that is much different than the neighborhood that we raised our kids in. We have close neighbors. We have a lot of neighbors. There's a lot of activities. It's almost like its own little small town. We took up pickleball together, which I know one of the things that it said was to maybe find a sport. They suggested golf, but we chose pickleball. But we've had a great time. Like, we kind of started playing pickleball for the first time, maybe right after our twins went to college. So it really was like something that we picked up together. We started traveling a little bit more. I think having some things like that, like the freedom to go somewhere, like we went to Europe for the first time when our twins were sophomores in college. And that was such a freeing experience. For the first time, I didn't have to arrange tons of childcare and rides to and fro. And that was so overwhelming. I would not have even, and I didn't do it like while my kids were still at home. But once they're in college, it was like, oh, well, we can go and we
Mhm.
can be on a different time zone and we can be far, far away and it's okay. So that was really freeing and it helps you, like going to a new place together helps you have new things to talk about and you see each other having fun in a different way and you experience things together and figure out things together. And I think traveling to new places together can almost like kind of reignite kind of a feeling that you felt when it was just the two of you at the beginning.
Mhm. That's one of the things we're really looking forward to doing, Marie, um, when we are truly empty nesting.
Mhm.
And so over the past couple years, our little trips together have increased. We've tried to get away. It's nice because you don't really need a babysitter when you have a teenager at home, but you still don't want to leave them alone. It's this interesting dynamic.
Mhm.
So thankfully, we have the older siblings that literally I'll tag an older sibling to keep an eye on Nathan or just hang with him or he can go to their house or something like that. Like we've
Mhm.
tried to enjoy more freedom.
Mhm.
And so that gets us excited for when we can maybe step out a little bit further and maybe go to Europe.
Mhm.
And so we're like, we are really looking forward to that. Something else that really helps is all along the way, having friends in the same season as you is
Mm.
so helpful
Mhm.
to know that you're not alone. I like that you said that. I would say going to church together, having friends that are in the same season as us has helped us in every season. And it's helping us again now
Mhm.
because we have friends that are either fully empty nesting or they're kind of in between like us. Their home has gotten lighter, they have freedom. So we can go to dinner together.
Mhm.
Well, that's a lot of fun to be able to go out with friends. We haven't really been able to do that in the past. Um, so one of the things that I think is kind of fun that we try to talk about, or it just naturally comes up, is we have so many inside jokes because we were married so young,
Mhm.
because you've gone through so many different seasons. The things or the language that we have is purely our own.
Mhm.
It's funny because I've heard like twins have a language.
Mhm.
I feel like even my younger sons, they were close in age, they shared a room a lot. They were both in speech therapy all through elementary school because they had their own language.
Mm.
I think that that happens with couples that have been married a long time, but we have our own language. We can talk about something and we'll make different references, and only your spouse gets it. Like,
Mhm.
only they were there, only they know.
Mhm.
And so I love that, right now, experiencing that. And then just kind of a fun thing to do is we can brag about our kids to each other all day long and not hurt the other's feelings because the other feels the same way. We're like, "Let me tell you how amazing my kid is." They're like, "No, let me tell you."
Yeah.
And that is a shared thing nobody else on this earth has except Bryce.
I know. It's true. Now that I'm entering the empty nest, sometimes I also start to think about, well, what do I envision for the future? Do you have like any future things? Because I know that sometimes when you're not even at a stage, you look back on what you thought it would be like. You're like, I was so wrong. But what do
Right.
you envision for the future?
Well, it's interesting because Bryce and I feel like we've started to dream again. I mentioned the second half. I almost feel like we could like get married again.
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, we're starting this new life, but we have all this shared history and people together. So we would love to be able to be close to our kids, have some land, work the land. Like, we've never been able to do that, but gardening and landscaping and things have always been an interest. We'd love to travel together. We'd love to really just travel around and see our kids.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We have great retirement plans if if we
Right.
have the blessing of having time and years together. Um, I could see us really just enjoying. Bryce has always wanted a horse. Like, are we gonna have a horse in our future? I don't
Uh-huh.
know.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
think there are these overarching themes, but I don't really know how to put details to it. I could see us moving to a place, though, with more space and more land and really just going to town on what we could do with the
Mm-hmm.
land.
Yeah.
So he and I both have grown in that.
Right.
Yeah, other than trying to be healthy together,
Yeah.
um, that's a constant pursuit. I don't know. How about you?
I think my biggest thing is just freedom. And I don't mean that in
Mhm.
a bad way, but for 30 years, my every decision has had to consider other people first. And I've
Yeah.
gladly done that. And you forget that you ever even lived a different way. But then people start leaving and then your little mind wakes up and you remember what it was like to have freedom and then you're like, "Oh, I love freedom. I want more freedom. This freedom is awesome." Like, but I think what makes the freedom awesome is if you feel like your kids are in a good place. I don't think I would feel
Yeah.
like the freedom was awesome if my kids weren't in a good place. But like you said, like, I want the freedom to go and enjoy and do what we want to do. And then also the freedom to visit and enjoy my kids. But I am ready to not be in parent mode. Like, I'm ready to stop putting that hat on. Now, maybe I'll miss it in 5 years and wish that I could put parent mode on, but I don't know. I feel like I am reaching the point where I can gladly say goodbye to parent mode and say hello to freedom and let's enjoy you, but I don't need to be in charge of you anymore.
Yes. We're real excited about that. Don't tell any of my kids I said that. But that's why it feels like the second beginning. Like, we know what we're choosing this time. We didn't know what we were choosing when we got married.
Right.
We know what we're choosing this time. We're both excited about it. And we want to dream again and we're ready for another life. I mean, we have a lifetime. I pray we have a lifetime still to live together. And that dreaming, that imagining that there could be more, something different, we could be different people, like, let's do it. What do we
Mhm.
want to be? Where do we want to go? So it really is exciting, even as we both grieve the season that we're going to be leaving. I know that there's real letting go, there's real
Mhm.
grieving. Our roles will change again.
Mm-hmm.
And, but I guess, I don't know, there is a big excitement for what that could mean.
Mm-hmm.
There was a quote that I just thought was really, really sweet. It is, "A successful marriage requires falling in love many times, always with the same person." That really is kind of in a nutshell what we have just talked about. And so I hope this has been an encouraging conversation. I think marriage is something that's difficult to talk about. It takes constant attention, maintenance, choosing, praying, forgiving, seeking forgiveness. Like you're never just going to be good. It's something that takes our active participation. So I love talking about it. I love hearing your story.
Mm-hmm.
But I hope that this is an encouragement to our listeners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And listeners, we would love to hear from you. We'd love to hear your long-term marriage stories, all the people that you've been. Come and find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast@gmail.com. Well, Mindy, I've enjoyed talking with you today.
This was fun.
And I look forward to our next conversation. We'll get back on track with our Christmas and New Year's episodes, but we hope this was a little break for people in the middle of all that.
There you go.
All right. We'll talk with you next week.
Sounds good. All right.
Bye. We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.